Hey guys, welcome to another Zippits. I'm so glad you could join me. This is 30 years after the release of Stryper's To Hell with the Devil, which is a very significant album for Christian metal. It was released on October 24th, 1986, which is coming up next month. Now, the length of this album is 41 minutes and 10 seconds, and it still was on the Enigma label. The Enigma label was a secular label who had different acts, a lot of metal acts. We could go over some of the metal acts, what I'm thinking about it. Barren Cross was one of the acts that was released on the Enigma label. Barren Cross was a Christian metal band as well. Now, this was the third release of Stryper's, and it took them to a platinum status. Now, if you listen to the Stryper podcast, they describe it as when Stryper goes from a club to a venue, or just into the bigger places, such as all the big places there are in the world. Calvary Chapel, they had already performed in Calvary Chapel when they were in the Soldiers Under Command era, and Yellow Black Attack, which were albums that was released earlier, and Michael Sweet has a very respect for those albums, even far better than this. And this is the whole thing with To Hell with the Devil. It's not something new that Stryper was doing. They were known for their patriotism, which we get from Sing Along Song from earlier albums. They were known for their Christian stance, which we learned from Yellow Black Attack and Soldiers Under Command. And like I said, they had previously performed at Calvary Chapel, which was the Christian sanctuary for a lot of bands to perform. It was the first Christian metal album, like I said, to achieve the platinum status. No one else had taken that over until you get to the P.O.D. era, which is in 2001. And we find out that in 2001, P.O.D. comes in and takes that over, and it's a new type of metal coming in. So for almost 20 years, they had the reign on Christian metal. Stryper did. And it is considered to be the number 88 album in the book CCM Presents the 100 Greatest Albums of Christian Music, and which was authored by Christe. Now, honestly, was ranked number 1 on Dial MTV, which was a ballad, and this is when metal was starting to get in the ballad performances, and you get the female fans, and that's what changed heavy metal as it was, and you get more of the glam perspective of metal changing as well. Honestly, was the biggest single, which was number 23 on Billboard's Hot 100 Singles chart. The original cover, To Hell the Devil, caused a torrent controversy, which was the album cover, and it was soon to change to the all-black design to try to keep people in perspective. Now, I've heard people's view on this, and like someone said, he sees it as a guy said he saw it as like a comic book cover, as you see superheroes dragging Satan to hell. Another album that, if you want to talk about a controversy about the devil, is Jerusalem's Dancing on the Head of the Serpent, where we see feet actually smashing a guy's head, or Satan's head, and that gave you an example of where the influence of Stryper had. It influenced even in the Norwegian area where you have Jerusalem, and of course metal is really a hot seller in those areas. Okay, first of all, let's go over track by track. Abyss is To Hell with the Devil. This is done by the keyboards of John Van Tongeren. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. He was the guy who's done a lot of different things. He's an American keyboardist for films and television. I believe he worked with Chicago, Robbie Neville, John Parr, Starship, Jeff Beck, Quincy Jones, Al Jarreau, the Pointer Sisters, Living in a Box, and of course Stryper. He's also done films such as Thelma and Louise, True Romance, Drop Zone with Hans Zimmer, and And he also collaborated with Mark Messina on Speed, Mall, Flanders, Fair Game, Assassins, and Twister, just to name a few of his credits. And he was the keyboardist in this sort of intro to Hell with the Devil, which is the Abyss. Now, the Abyss is something different for Stryper for the third release for their album, because they usually did not have a intro like this. So this was showing something there. To Hell with the Devil itself, which was written by Michael Sweet and Robert Sweet, is probably one of the greatest heavy metal songs of all time. One thing that you see the strengths of Michael Sweet's vocals, because why even start out with your verse with guitars when you can have a vocal like Michael Sweet? Now, Michael Sweet opens up this operatic tenor type vocal that comes into Hell with the Devil, and it just is brilliant and becomes a very big fight song for many Christians. In my life, when things were getting bad, this song was there to pick me up, and I love it because it just promises you what Christians know, is that they're going to win in the end, and Satan is a loser, and people who follow him are losers. I told a guy once, I said, why would I want to listen to a Satanist? I mean, why would I listen to losers? I listen to winners, and if you listen to Christ, you are a winner, because you're dealing with the biggest winner of them all. And so that's the whole thing. He takes losers and makes them into winners, and that's what's so great about being a Christian. So then you have Calling on You, which is just this kind of 50s feel, I guess you say. And you have this harmony and the vocals again. And you got to imagine, now this is the first time that this band is being introduced to secular people and Christian people as well. And they're just freaked out by these vocals, which was just amazing. Free was a song that was hard for me to accept, because I just never liked that whole cheap grace feel. But it is truth, is that you do get to choose what you want to do. Now, many Calvinists would probably get upset at this song, but it's the truth. You can choose salvation or you can choose hell. It's up to you. It's not like it's brain surgery. You know, it's really simple. Just choose. And for people who grew up Armenian and the Pentecostal type view, this is pretty easy for them to accept. It's a little bit harder for the reformers on the Calvinistic side to go, no, God chose me, you know, kind of thing. I like the song now, being more of a libertarian type guy ever before, but back in the day it was a little bit hard for me to grasp this, because I always hated the cheap grace type philosophical songs which were out there. The Way is kind of in the genre of what they've always did with Yellow, Black Attack, and Soldiers Under Command. But again, we're being introduced for the first time as Christians and secular people this type of music. A lot of kids were going to church at the time, were not listening to Christian music. They put in this song and got into the song like The Way, which is just vocally unbelievable. One thing that sticks out in The Way is this guitar solo that comes out of nowhere. Where did this come from? And I don't know if I musically would accept that nowadays as they do, but they do it really well. And then you have this was done by Oz Fox, the sing-along song. Again, we show the patriotism that is instilled in Stryper, which was before in other albums, and I think this is great. And, you know, being conservative, I love this kind of song, because it, you know, holds true to what, God Bless America, which they go into that even more in God We Trust. Holding On gives that 50s feel again that Calling on You has, and Rockin' the World is like The Way in many ways. Again, these are not new concepts for Stryper. If you had already listened to them in the earlier years, you were kind of accustomed to this. All of Me was a ballad, like honestly, and it was just showing where not Christian metal, but where glam metal was going with the ballads and to win the girls over, because obviously these ballads were great for your girlfriend as well. And then ending off with More Than a Man. More Than a Man is a great ending for an album. I love it. I love the drumming on this, and you feel the drummer in this is just like boom, he's just going all the way and passes out towards the end of the song. Now, I've done a little research on this and really not found anything new that you're going to find. I mean, not a lot of controversy that I can find around this album except for the album cover, and a lot of people dwell on that. I don't see the big deal. There were a lot of album covers in Christian music that was coming out that had a lot of controversy. I would give you an example. I predict 1990 from Steve Taylor, and that was, I think, released later year. The big thing that people will have a hard time understanding and be surprised, and I was surprised in my research, is that we have Tim Gaines is not the bass in this. Brad Cobb is a session bassist, but Tim joins him in the touring of To Hell with the Devil. So it was like, what was going on? Michael Sweet, I understand, just thought that Tim wasn't the person to go to with this. There is a little bit more emphasis on bass. Maybe Michael thought that that's where their weakest point was, and if they could change the bass, maybe they could have a better album. I mean, there is songs like Sing Along Song, which it takes the bass player almost out of it, and you have this syncopated bass that is just pretty awesome. And I think that's where Michael Sweet was saying, we need to do this and do this a little bit and tweak this, and we could have like a perfect album. Let's keep doing what we're doing, which they obviously did. And like I said, Michael Sweet has not said, oh, this is like one of my favorite albums. He'll go back to the other two albums that were before as better albums. And I think the reason is because those set the trend of what Stryper was going to be. But this brought him into the limelight. This album, I think by this time, everybody knew who Stryper was. And so when they came with the album, they said, we've got to hear this. And I think with Christians as well, that you're going to say, hey, we're going to listen to this. We need to give this a chance before we write them off, because I and many other fundamental Christians as well were in that concept of, was Stryper going too far, especially with the glam metal look, which is a terrible look. I blame it more on fad and less about the right and wrong about this, because the whole thing with fads, we're going to learn, is they don't stand the test of time. And glam metal look did not stand the test of time, whether you take Barren Cross or you take Stryper as well. And what they've done is they had to change, they had to adapt. And when I was a kid, this was so funny. I couldn't understand why you couldn't have short hair and you can't wear suits and ties and sing. And now you look at some of these artists, even Metallica, wearing suits and ties and short hair and singing, and you're thinking, why didn't you do that in the first place? Really? This is, was it mind-boggling that spandex and long hair and dressing like a girl was not going to last? Did that not go through your mind? Did that not fathom? Yes, Stryper's To Hell with the Devil is a great metal album, and I love it. There are albums that I like better, but when you take heavy metal, when you talk about Christian metal in reality, there is not that many good ones that you can say, hey, this is the best Christian metal, because most of the metal albums do not go out of their way to try to get you. If you take Petra's On Fire, people don't understand. I mean, that's a heavy metal album, but because of their hard rock stance, people label them as hard rock. But it is a great Christian album, a metal album. There's not that many Christian quote metal albums that you can sit there and say, wow, this is just great. Most of the Christian rock albums I can name that are excellent and are hard rock, Christian hard rock albums. When it gets down to the metal, when it gets down to that lifestyle of the metal persona per se, they don't stand with To Hell with the Devil and its studio quality and what Michael Sweet did to tweak things a little bit to get them their place, so secular side and the Christian side, because they had to appease everyone, and they did everything in the world to do it. People cannot say they did not try to appease their fans or try to appease other people to bring more fans, because they weren't about division. at this time. They were about unity, and that's when I think that's what makes Stryper a pivotal band. And I'm not talking about Christian band, but just a band altogether, is that how they can connect people together. And if you've got that good connection, you've got to wonder that something about this group is doing something right. Now, I love controversy, and I think you ought to get the truth out there, but there are certain ways you get the truth out there and still keep followers as hard as it is. And I'm not saying that you should do it. You should do what is right and what the Lord has led you to do. And if the Lord leads you to do Christian metal, I think you ought to consider it, or Christian punk or whatever. But at the same time, don't take him out of it if he's the one that gives you the ability and the power to do those things. Well, there's my take on the 30th anniversary of Stryper to the Hell of the Devil and Zippits' view on it. I recommend, if you don't have a copy of To Hell with the Devil, go and get one right now at your local Christian bookstore or online through iTunes or whatever, and support these artists that really paved the way for other Christian artists. You guys have a great day, and more Zippits are on the way.